guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about different rifle setups. As you can see here, I have 3 different rifles in front of you. There's a lot of different other configurations you could do, but these are kind of the 3 different ones I have, and they're each for a specific role, which I'll go over. And I'll also go over kind of what's on each of them and kind of why I have them set up the way I do. Sorry for not posting anything for about a week and a half. I try to post stuff more often, but I've just been really busy over the last couple weeks, so sorry about that. I'll try to get back to posting at least once a week, starting here in the future. But anyways, so these rifles, if you're looking to how to set up your AR or what exactly to put on your AR, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what is this rifle's purpose? Or in the case of the middle one right here, what is the pistol's purpose? If you live in a state where you can use an AR pistol kind of as a concealed carry piece and it qualifies for that, they make excellent truck guns or vehicle guns or just in case guns that you can kind of keep in your car. But again, that depends on where you live, your local laws, your state laws. Just make sure you're following all the laws as best you can, because there's no reason to get charged with something when it's easily avoidable. So first I'm going to go over kind of my top rifle that you see, which is this one right up here. You guys have seen it before on a couple different videos. It's kind of my, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, Boogaloo, SHTF, Into the World gun, whatever you want to call it. Wolverines, you know, whatever you want to insert here, whatever the purpose rifle is. So it's kind of my more serious use rifle. I shoot it most often at the range. It's what I train with. I also train with this one probably the next bit amount because it's set up similar to my work rifle, so that way I get a little bit of different, it's not exactly the same, but I get some muscle memory that's similar in that aspect. So first of all, we'll go over the top one up here. So as you can see on the top, let me grab it here, hopefully you can still see it. Yeah, you can. Alright, so I'm going to try to maneuver myself around the camera where you can see this thing. So on the top up here, first I have an EOTech, and I don't remember the name of the model, but it's the non-riser model, so it doesn't have the quick detach on the other side. It's just a screw. One thing is you can put the quick detach, I don't know what you call it, knob, for lack of better words, where it's bigger, where you can grasp it with your hand and turn it, but it just adds weight, so I don't bother. And if this optic needs to be taken off, I can just use my iron sights. And if I have to, I guess I could flashlight with the rifle. But that's why you have a secondary. With this specific setup, I would have my pistol on me. And then later on, I can fix the rifle as needed. But I also have this hollow sun magnifier on here, which, as you can see, flips to the side. So most of the time, I run it where the magnifier is off to the side and out of the way. And then if I ever need it, I just flip it over and then I can use it. But most of the time, I just use a red dot, because most of my engagement distances that we're always shooting at are 100 yards and in. Whenever we're barricaded and I have time to take a more well-aimed shot, yeah, I'll put this over. Like if we set up a hostage shoot or something, then yeah, that gives me a little bit more magnification, allows me to get an easier shot on target. But the reason I have this set up instead of an optic, like say a scope of some kind, like a 1:6 or 1:4 or 1:10 or whatever, is I like red dots. I love the EOTech reticle. And also, I'm just kind of cheap. So I already bought all these things. I like how they work. I like the capabilities. Realistically, this gun is 300 to 400 yard gun. Yeah, it can shoot farther than that, but then you're starting to look at, you know, what kind of ballistics are you actually getting out of, what kind of ammo are you using. So can you make shots out to 500, 600, 700 yards? Sure. How effective is this going to be at longer distances? Up to you. But 3 power magnification should be enough for you to shoot out to easily 300-400 yards. If you can't, a better optic's probably not going to help you much. It's probably because you just need more trigger time. I have backup iron sights on here. This probably annoys all of you with OCD like me. At some point I'm going to paint it, but this is just a UTG backup sight. It's the only reason I chose this is because my Magpul sight would not allow the hollow sun to flip over completely out of the way. It was too wide, so over here it would just kind of stick out and it got in the way. So I just replaced it, and odds are I'm never going to have to use that rear sight. So, but from what I've used these, they're just fine. I have a Radian Raptor charging handle on here, and as you can see, gun's empty. So for all you're worried about that, in case you're afraid you get shot through the camera, this is by far my favorite charging handle. The Radian Raptor, this is their light model, where it's the polymer little ears here. Their other one is more skeletonized aluminum, which I'd say it's just fine too, but this one was a little bit cheaper, which is why I went with it. I do have a QD mount back here on the end plate. I generally don't use a single point sling, and I guess we'll go ahead and talk about slings here. I have that there in case I want to use it, because why not? Doesn't really add any weight. So on this specific rifle, I have a Blue Force Gear Vickers sling, and this is the non-padded version. I absolutely love these slings. This is what I would recommend for you if you're going to get something. I mount it up here because it doesn't get in the way as much as whenever I have it mounted say farther forward. That tends to get, like if I were to mount it up here where my thumb is, I tend to get everything kind of wrapped up in my arm whenever I'm trying to shoot. So I tend to put it back here. Well, one thing, if you mount it closer to the receiver, is it's going to get in the way of your reloads ever so slightly. So there's kind of a pro and a con for wherever you put it. So try it in different locations, see what works best for you. On this specific rifle, for those of you who care, because I've had people to ask, the handguard is actually a Stinger brand handguard, and as you can see, it has a little anti-rotation kind of tabs right there, and it also has, if you can see under here, it's spray painted, but there's a little piece right there that goes in and locks into the barrel nut, so it prevents it from going forward. I was kind of skeptical of this handguard initially because it didn't feel cheesy, but compared to like a Midwest Industries rail that has like a knurled barrel nut, this one was just a smooth barrel nut, so it's clamping down on smooth metal. But it hasn't moved at all yet, which I know Palmetto State Armory, if y'all have ordered from them, they're kind of notorious for their handguards sliding forward, but I haven't had a problem with this one whatsoever. I have a BCM vertical grip on the front. For those of you who wonder, you can turn around the opposite direction and get a little bit better grip depending on how you like the grip. I personally like it this way, it's more comfortable for me. And I have an Enforce IR and white light up here. So as you can see, it's on white light right now. So if I move that out of the way, you can see white light. If I flip the other way, it'd be IR, which you can't see. This gun also has the Hollow Sun. It's like LS117, I think. It's just an IR laser. That's all it's on here. But again, this gun is designed to be used with night vision, so it's kind of set up to do everything. But if you don't have night vision, you obviously don't need an IR light. You don't need an IR laser. That's just, I mean, unless you just want to go, you know, LARPing somewhere, sure, looks cool, but it really wouldn't have any practical purpose for you at that point. You absolutely need a light on your gun. So that's one thing I'm going to kind of talk about here for a second, is on all these guns except for the one that I have in my truck, and that's simply because the one that goes in my truck, I can't fit a white light where it fits. It won't actually go in easily. So at some point I'm going to find some sort of light that I can make work and that will fit in there, but as of right now, that's kind of last on my list. But I do have a weapon mounted light that I carry with me every day, and there is a flashlight back there with the rifle, so I guess worst case scenario, I can duct tape it to it. But you absolutely want a white light. The barrel on this one is a Faxon 16 inch. It's a pencil length barrel, or it's a pencil profile barrel, 16 length. And it just has a standard A2 flash gauge on the front. Now this one, I forgot where I got this flash hider from, but it's actually slightly different than an A2, but in all essence, it's an A2. Let's see what else on here. On this one, I have Magpul front sight, and again, I only put the rear sight as UTG on there because that's what would fit. I spray painted it because why not? Looks cool in my opinion. I like it. The spray paint wears off, sure, but I think that makes it look cooler. You absolutely, for your rifle, you want a Magpul trigger guard or a round trigger guard of some kind, because if you ever shoot with gloves, which you probably should be shooting with gloves, you want your finger to be able to get in there. I just have standard Magpul. I'll flip this around so you can see it. I just have standard Magpul furniture on here. The MOE stock has always worked fine for me, so I don't have a problem with it. Yeah, it's a little wobbly. Don't care. Doesn't matter. The grip, again, the MOE model. I've tried their, I don't remember what it's called, but it's the one where it's more 1911 kind of grip, more straight vertical instead of angled. I will say in CQB type scenarios, the angled one works a little bit better. This one's more comfortable though from shooting from prone and say kneeling positions, versus the other one's more comfortable whenever you're in a standard kind of standing CQB type distance. But it all depends on your wrist and your grip angle. I personally like how Glocks feel in my hand. It's a natural point of aim for me, so this one actually feels better in my hand versus the more vertical ones. The bolt carrier group in here is some type of nitride. I don't remember if this is the one that I bought from Brownells or if this is a Palmetto State Armory bolt carrier group, but it's a nitrided bolt carrier group, and if you can afford the nitride, get the nitride. It's a breeze to clean, and if you hear my cats, apologies. It's a breeze to clean the nitrided bolt carrier groups compared to say a phosphate. So I would absolutely suggest getting the nitride if you can afford it. Usually they're only like 10-15 bucks more from what I've seen. So again, this rifle is set up for CQB up to 300 to 400 yards max. That's what this gun's for. If you want to shoot out further than that, you're probably going to want an 18-inch barrel, maybe a 20-inch. I doubt it. Not a whole lot of people run 20-inch anymore, but an 18 would be what I'd go with, and that's what I have for my longer range gun that has a scope on it, is an 18-inch barrel. But if y'all have any questions about this that I didn't go over, feel free to ask. I think I covered everything on here. Oh, the trigger is Palmetto State Armory's. It's their, I think it's EPT is what they call it. Basically, it's just a nitrided, or not a nitrided, but it's a coated, NIB coated, like a nickel plating coating on a standard mil-spec trigger. And I will say, okay, you can see, again, empty. Whenever you pull the trigger, it's very, very crisp. So instead of your standard mil-spec trigger where it's kind of got some creep here and then, you know, some grinding and then eventually it goes off, this one there's a little bit of take up and then it's just a very smooth take up. So I would absolutely suggest getting this trigger. It's by far my favorite trigger out of all the different ones I've shot, and I've shot some nicer triggers, but I tend to like mil-spec stuff because, one, I like the heavier trigger pull on this because I know if my safety gets flipped off and say, I don't know, my safety gets flipped off dragging on my gear, and there's a good chance that something's going to get in this trigger guard, because I've actually had that happen where whenever you have your rifle slung, it's really easy if the safety selector, this side, is facing your plate carrier, and it'll get snagged on a bunch of stuff, and it's really easy for that thing to get flipped off. So that's why I like the heavier trigger pull, just for safety concerns, because this rifle is going to get bumped all over the place. So again, if you have any questions about this specific setup, I set this one up to try to be a kind of good all-around gun. Not great at any one specific thing, kind of a jack of all trades. The upper receiver, which some of you noticed, does not have a forward assist. I don't like forward assist. I don't think they're necessarily a bad thing, but I think people tend to overuse them, and that creates more problems. So I kind of agree with Clint Smith when it comes to the forward assist of why would I want to jam something into the barrel that doesn't want to go. I'd rather just tap rack, get that bad round out of there, because if you have, I've had a couple different situations where where the bolt carrier group would not go forward. And once I ejected that round, I looked at it, and the casing was peeled back kind of like a banana around the neck. And so if I had used that forward assist to try to shove it in there, I would have just created a worse jam and a worse malfunction that I would have had to use a cleaning rod and beat that casing out of, because I would have shoved it in there. So I have personally never seen a situation where the forward assist helped. Again, if your round's not going in the chamber, even under full spring pressure, there's something wrong with your ammo, there's something wrong with your gun, you need to inspect it. You don't need to just beat on the case, to try, on the forward assist to try to send that round home. You can argue with me, that's fine, I don't care. But that's my opinion. Also, this gun is designed to be a lightweight build. So as you can see, the pencil profile barrel is really thin inside there. So that this thing is significantly lighter than even this other rifle right down here. That's a Smith & Wesson M&P Sport, the first model, first gen, without the forward assist and dust cover. And this gun, even with all this stuff on here, is still lighter than that gun. So, surprising. But that's also, part of it is because of the barrel, part of it is because of the lack of a forward assist, saves a few ounces. This light is the Enforce, it's a polymer body, so this light is incredibly light compared to the Streamlight on the other one. But again, if you have any questions about this specifically, the upper, if I didn't cover that, it doesn't have the forward assist, but it is a Aero Precision upper. So the upper on this one is fairly nice compared, I guess, to the rest of it. Your barrel and your bolt carrier group are really where you want to spend money. If you're going to spend money on something nice. The rest of the rifle can kind of be hodgepodge parts, and it's not really going to make as much of a difference. So, well, with the exception of an optic. You want to buy a fairly good optic. And kind of as a side note, whenever you're building a rifle, don't skimp out on the optic. I've bought a lot of junk optics over the years. The cheapest one I'd ever suggest is this one that's on here. It's the Bushnell TRS 25, and they've changed over the years. They're not as good as they used to be. But I got this one on sale for like 25 bucks, which is ridiculous. Most of the time they're around, 60, 70 bucks. And for that price, they're okay. But personally, I wouldn't trust it on a rifle that you're going to be beating around all over the place or running back of the truck. I wouldn't trust it for that. I've never had mine break, but again, it's kind of a cheaper optic. What I use that one on, and I guess we'll go over this rifle now, is home defense. So this one is a very similar rifle to what I use at work, but it's also a really heavy rifle, front end especially. So on this M&P Sport, it has a really thick heavy profile barrel on the front, which adds a decent amount of weight. You can see it doesn't have the M4 cutout, so it's a pretty heavy front end gun. It also has the A2 front sight post, so that adds weight. It has this Streamlight light, which is 1,000 lumens, but also adds a lot of weight up front. And I have this vertical grip on here because, again, that's what we have at work. And it also allows me to kind of grab and put my hand kind of like this, where I can wrap around and pull back against the rifle. So it gives me something to pull against. And whenever my thumb's up here, I can easily activate the light. So if I want to use a momentary, I can just push in and use momentary, or I can click it and just go to town. So it depends on whatever you want to do. The optic, as I said, is a Bushnell TRS-25. It's a great range optic. I would say it makes a great home defense rifle optic because your home defense rifle is not getting dragged around. It's not getting thrown in the mud. It's literally just sitting in your house and getting turned on. Again, I'm not super gentle on my stuff, and I've bumped this against all kinds of things over the years. I've had this optic for probably 5-6 years. Still working just fine. The battery life on these is not good, so turn it off whenever you're not using it. So that's, I guess, one negative of it. But on this one, as you can see, it's a sport model. Doesn't have the forward assist. Doesn't have the dust cover. I've never really noticed a problem with that. This, if you see cat hair on it, is because my cats get on everything. If you have cats, you understand what I'm talking about. But so every now and then this will be kind of like coated with cat hair because I set this behind my door, my bedroom. But that's neither here nor there. I absolutely love this rifle. On the rear side on this one, it's a mag pull. I leave it flipped down because why would I leave it in the way of my red dot? But one thing you can see on here is I have, hopefully you can see that right there, the smaller diopter, whatever we're going to call it for the aiming peep sight, is down, so that way you can see you're aiming through the big one. If you have to utilize your iron sights, you're looking through the large diopter first, because odds are you're going to be up close. And if you're at distance after you flip this up, you have time to flip this up. But anyways, I have a standard charging handle on this one. At some point I'll switch it out. Haven't gotten to it yet. I used to run a single point sling on this gun, and that's why I'm no longer a fan of single point slings. So this is a mag pull end plate. I don't remember what they call it, but if you're going to run a single point sling, this was probably my favorite way to do it because it switched back and forth really easily. But the single point slings, unfortunately, as soon as you let that rifle go and just let the sling do its job and hold the gun for you, say if you're switching to a pistol or something, if you move at all, this rifle's hitting you in the junk over and over and over again. It's just going to keep popping in the crotch. So that's not fun. If you don't believe me, buy yourself a single point sling, put your rifle on it, and then go try to do room clearing or moving, transition to pistol, and you're going to find out pretty quick. There's techniques you can use to mitigate that, sure, absolutely. But I found that if you're having to move around and you're having to switch guns from your rifle to your pistol, you're going to want a 2-point sling. So that's what I have on here. Again, I have this on all my rifles. It's a Blue Force Gear Vickers sling. You can get the padded version. You can just get the regular version. The regular version for me works just fine. I've never had a problem with it. Again, MOE stuff. This gun I actually threw kind of all my spare parts on. So I have all my MOE furniture on here. It's kind of a hodgepodge piece, but what you see is what you get. Again, if you have any questions on this one, let me know. The reason that is my home defense rifle is, one, it has literally all my heavy stuff on there. So the rifle barrel itself is super heavy, the flashlight's super heavy, just the forend's super heavy. So all the weights up front, but that really doesn't matter in your house. Again, because you're not carrying this thing for long periods of time. It's going to be used for, maybe 15 minutes at the most. So you can huff that weight around, not a big deal. The reason I went with the lighter build up top is because that's a gun that I'm intending to have to carry around for hours on end, possibly for days. So I want that to be lightweight. So again, if you have any questions about those two setups, let me know. The middle setup is specifically my truck gun. So with that, it is let me show you here. It's an 11.5-inch barrel. And this is, I believe, it's an AIM surplus barrel that they make. It's a standard cut, if I remember correctly, but it's 11.5 inch. It's got an A2 front, flashlighter on the front, mag pull front sights. This is an Arisaka hand stop. Still not 100% sure how I feel about this hand stop. It's pretty nice. I usually put my front finger around it like this and kind of use it as something to pull back against. But this hand guard is kind of short, so it really doesn't have that much of an effect. But I would like this a lot more if I had a longer hand guard. But the hand guard is a Midwest Industries, and I love the hand guard. But at the time, it was the only thing that was in stock, the only length, and I didn't want to wait. I was impatient. Don't do that. If you get a 11.5-inch barrel or 10 and a half, yeah, 11 and a half inch barrel. Make sure to get a handguard that actually will go to about here, because I think this is 9.5 inch, I want to say, and I regret buying this. Now, granted, I still love this handguard, but it's shorter than I would like. On here, I have a 512 EOTech model. Again, I love EOTechs. I've never had a problem with them. If you buy one, make sure it's past the recall date that they had. I want to say it was 2012 and past is when they had issues with it. So just make sure whatever you buy, you can Google that and see what the date is, but make sure it's a modern model that doesn't have some of the zero shift issues that some of the previous generations had. On here, I have a UTG magnifier. Again, just pull back, flip it off to the side, kind of locks in place. If I were to utilize this rifle, this would be off to the side, and I would flip it back up if I needed it for anything. On this one, I actually have, this is a BCM charging handle, so it's not ambidextrous, it's only on one side. And I love this charging handle, but I will say between it and the Radian, I like the Radian better. Not anything necessarily wrong with this one, but I like the Radian better. It's painted because it looks cool. I have the same Palmetto trigger in this one. You can see it's a nickel plated, and you can see in this one, just so you can kind of see, it's unloaded. But whenever you pull the trigger, very little creep. So there's just a little bit of take up, just a little bit, and a nice crisp let off. It's a very nice trigger. It's not a match trigger, but for a mil-spec, it's probably the best I've used. On this one, I do have a forward assist, and that's just because at the time I had that upper receiver, so I just utilized it. But again, if I was thinking about it, I would have gotten one without it, but since I already had that part, I just used it. And this one's sitting around my truck, so that extra weight really doesn't matter. This is an SB3 SB Tactical brace. I absolutely love these braces. They make a newer one that has kind of this cross support section across here. I don't really see a need for that. I've never had problems with this. It works just fine. Again, sling, Vickers, Blue Force gear, same thing. I love this sling. I think that's pretty much it. Mag pull. But I will say on here, if you go with a optic that's say a 1:4, 1:6, 1:8, something like that, nothing wrong with that. Just know that if you're going to be shooting from awkward positions, you're not going to be able to see your reticle as easily because the eye box is smaller compared to something like a red dot where there is no eye box. You just look through it and you can see. So if you ever shoot from barricade or awkward positions underneath vehicles and stuff, you will really appreciate a red dot on your rifles versus a low power or variable optic. So that's just my 2 cents. If you're not worried about shooting around weird corners, yeah, get yourself something with some magnification. But EOTech with a magnifier or any kind of red dot with magnifier, to me, works just fine. Yep, I think that's pretty much. Oh, I will show you one other thing. Sorry, this video is a lot longer than I intended it to be. So on here, this is what I have in my truck with my gear. So if you have a truck gun, you need a way to carry spare mags. Because if you're going to need a truck gun, then you probably are in a situation where you might want extra mags. So in each of these, you can see I have 2 Magpul magazines. This is just a military surplus, like bandolier. Got it on Amazon. It's like $8. I don't like the digital camo, but whatever. I don't care. It's sitting in my truck. It's not there to look pretty. It's there to be functional. So I utilize this where I have 2 magazines on each side. And then I also have a magazine just sitting in the truck that I can put in my gun. So that gives me 5 total mags that are all loaded. And then I utilize the middle compartment. As you can see, I have a cat tourniquet. I have an Israeli bandage shoved down in there. And then I have a chest seal. So I have a medical kit mixed in with my mags. So now if you have like a plate carrier or something else that's, you know, decked out, then sure, you don't need this. But I wanted something because I normally have a plate carrier in my truck, but not always. So I wanted something that stayed with the rifle specifically. So if I didn't have that plate carrier with all that gear, I at least have this. So that's just something to take under consideration. I can just, you know, sling this around myself and grab my rifle, sling it, and do whatever I need to do. But this is just something I thought of that I actually put together recently. So it's just a way to carry spare ammo. And I always have a medical kit in my truck, which is something I kind of wanted. Again, it's a pretty simplistic medical kit, but it's better than nothing. All right, so I think I covered everything. I have one thing I will say that I didn't cover is pressure switches. So the pressure switch that comes with this Holosun is kind of cheesy. There is no audible click whatsoever. You can barely even feel that you're pushing it out. The button's right there, but you can barely tell you're pushing in on it. But again, whenever I hold this rifle, I'm actually holding it like this. So that's just kind of a reference point. And if I need to use a laser, I can. If I need to reach up here and push this, I can. But where you put the pressure pad matters. Make sure to put it somewhere where it's not in the way, but it's also easy to access. And one thing I also noticed is don't buy cheap rubber bands like this one. I did, and a couple of them snapped. If you look closely on, I don't know if it's the intro or one of the videos I did, you can actually see the rubber band snapping as I go to barricade. So these are actually Ranger bands. These work a lot better. They're a little bit more durable. Granted, they're going to snap over time too. You got to replace them. But again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you want to argue with me on, you know, forward assist or no forward assist, then sure, have at it. You can hear my wife getting on my cats in there. But all right, so I don't know if I'll edit that out or not, but my cat's just knocked down a candle and it shattered all over the place. Oh, so where was I? All right, so one thing I will say when you're selecting barrel length, 16 inch is probably the best all-around option for just kind of an all-around gun. The only reason I went with 11.5 inch barrel for that specific gun in the middle for my truck guns, because that's the largest barrel I could get. It would still fit behind my truck seats in the back. So, I mean, if I could get a longer barrel, sure, I'd shove it back there. But also, the state I live in, they concealed carry laws, the barrel on your handgun or on your pistol can't be longer. It has to be shorter than 12 inches, and this is 11.5, so it can technically be used for a concealed carry gun. So that's another reason why I have that there, because this, again, is a pistol. So just know your state laws, and if you're driving from state to state, again, know all the state laws for the states that you're driving through. Print out those laws. So if you get pulled over and somehow or another it becomes an issue, that way you can just hand the laws directly over to the police officer that pulls you over. You can be like, hey, this is the law, you know. So because most of the time, police aren't educated on gun laws. So kind of just give them the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully they trust what you printed out. But anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Again, give us a like and a subscribe if you like this kind of content. Or if you want me to go over anything else in more detail about these rifles or just rifles in general. This is just kind of an overview of 3 different rifles I have, their purposes, and why I use them for what I do. But anyways, hope you all have a good one.